Yeah, we're frustrated. There are going to be times, again, when, it's going to flip the other way. But if you got a real team, you understand that you have that perspective. And I think internally, everybody's going to be frustrated after a loss. But we got the right guys in there. And we know we got to get back to work. And we got to jumpstart and get this thing rolling and get back on the winning track.
Inside the Nest, an Atlanta Falcons audio experience. Here is your host, Craig Green.
Touchdown Atlanta.
2 consecutive losses, with turnovers costly. The defense is fiery, but the offense is frosty. Welcome inside the Nest. I'm your host, Craig Green. Let's get into it. Let's give credit of the sound of Arthur Smith's press conference to AtlantaFalcons.com after the Falcons fall in London to the Jacksonville Jaguars 23-7. Falcons drop to 2-2, their second consecutive loss. Jacksonville improves to 2-1 after losing last week to the Houston Texans. So let's take a look at the injury update for the Falcons. Troy Anderson, with a pectoral injury, was placed on IR on Tuesday before the game, so obviously he did not travel to London with the Falcons. Cordero Patterson, with a thigh injury, was active against Jacksonville today. His first action all season long. He was the kick returner for every kickoff, but got no returns. D. Alford left the game in the second quarter, went into concussion protocol today, but cleared the protocol and came back to play in the fourth quarter, so good news for D. Alford and the Falcons. So let's recap the stats from this afternoon's contest. First downs, 17-16 Atlanta. Third down efficiency, the Falcons led that. They were 6 of 12 from third down. Jaguars 5 of 14. The Falcons were 0 of 1 on fourth down. Jags were 1 of 2. Total yards, 300 to 287 Jacksonville. Yards per play, Falcons 5.0 to 4.7 for the Jags. Passing yards, 195 to 160 Jacksonville. Rushing yards, 127 to 105 Atlanta. In the red zone, the Falcons were 1 of 2, cashing in on a 15-yard touchdown pass from Desmond Ridder to Drake London. Jags were 0 of 1, who were stymied on a fourth down by the Falcons inside their own 10-yard line. Penalties, even, 3 penalties apiece. The Falcons' penalties went for 50 yards as opposed to the Jags, who went for 25. And 43 of those 50 penalty yards was on one play. That was A.J. Terrell interfering with Calvin Ridley in the fourth quarter. Turnover battle, 3-0 Jacksonville. And time of possession, 32:51 to 27:09 in favor of the Jags. For the Falcons, Desmond Ridder, 19 of 31, 191 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, averaged 6.2 yards per pass, sacked 4 times for 31 yards, and a passer rating of 62.7. Bijan Robinson had a nice game today, 14 carries, 105 yards, averaged 7.5 yards a carry. He also had 5 receptions for 32 yards, so 137 total yards for Bijan Robinson. Caught 5 passes on 5 targets. The leading receiver for the Falcons today, Jonnu Smith, 6 catches for 95 yards. Drake London, 3 catches, 28 yards, and a touchdown. Targeted 7 times. Kyle Pitts, 2 for 21. Matt Collins was targeted 3 times, did not make a catch. Michael Pruitt targeted once, did not make a catch. Canaro Hodge, 2 catches for 19 yards. Tyler Algier, 1 catch, lost 4 yards, was targeted twice. So quick recap of the game and looking at some former Falcons and what they did today. Former Falcon Foye Oluokun, linebacker number 23, is a captain for the Jags now, wearing the C on his jersey. He had a nice game today. He had 9 tackles, 8 solo, and 3 tackles for loss. Calvin Ridley, former Falcon who was suspended by the NFL for his gambling and then traded to Jacksonville, 2 catches, 39 yards, and a touchdown. Ridley was in the back of the end zone wide open in the first quarter on a busted coverage by the Falcons. All right, so let's go back and look at a quick recap of the game if we can. In the first quarter, the first notable play where the Falcons found themselves in a little trouble on third down, where Zach Harrison lost containment on Trevor Lawrence. Harrison missed a sack. He allowed Lawrence to run 21 yards for a first down. On that same drive, Ridley was wide open for a touchdown after Richie Grant missed a sack, lost containment on Lawrence. A.J. Terrell was the nearest Falcon on that play, lost Ridley in the coverage. Ridley wide open in the back of the end zone, 7-0 Jacksonville. So with 3.5 minutes left in the first on a 3rd and 1, empty backfield for the Falcons. On 3rd and 1, they called an empty backfield play, no running backs. Ritter's holding on to the ball a little too long, gets sacked. Not sure why they would go empty when you need 1 yard, but either way, they have to execute better. That's my biggest takeaway from that. When it's empty backfield like that on 3rd down and 1, if you're Desmond Ridder, you either have to run for the first down immediately or get rid of the ball. You cannot take a sack. 7-0 Jacksonville after 1. So in the second quarter, the Jags get a field goal, make it 10-0. Then shortly after that, Darius Williams beats Drake London to the football, picks off Desmond Ridder, takes it 62 yards to the house for a touchdown with 4.5 minutes left before halftime. Ridder was staring London down on the play. Williams saw it, got there before London did, and made the play and scored the touchdown for the Jags. So now it's 17-0 with 4.5 left before halftime. So 11 seconds later, the very next throw by Desmond Ridder, he throws a pick to Andre Sisco, who made a good play to step in front of the receiver. But it's back-to-back negative possessions for the Falcons, and now they found themselves in a 17-point hole. So with the short field, the Jags decide to go for it on 4th down, and on that 4th down, a sack by Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata saves points for the Falcons after that turnover, and they keep it 17-0. The Falcons get a second sack of Lawrence to end the first half and keep the score right there at 17-0. The defense is holding the rope again while the offense is kind of struggling. The Falcons do get the ball to start the third quarter. Now, in the third quarter on the first possession, Desmond Ridder, 15-yard touchdown pass to Drake London on 3rd down. At that point in the game, Desmond Ridder was 6 of 6 on 3rd down. The drive took 3.5 minutes. The Falcons responded nicely to start the second half. The Falcons defense got off the field on their first defensive series in the third quarter, so things are starting to look up. With 5 minutes left in the third, there's a Cordero Patterson sighting. Comes in on offense for the first time this season. No targets. He was just out there running his route. Falcons win the third quarter, 7-0. So at the end of 3, it's 17-7 Jacksonville. The Jags add a field goal with 10.5 to go in the fourth to make it 20-7. So the Falcons drive down the field on 4th and 3 from the Jacksonville 16 with 6 minutes to go. The Falcons are stopped. There was a good throw by Desmond Ridder to Drake London, but Tyson Campbell of the Jags pushed London out of bounds before he can get 2 feet down in the back of the end zone. So still 20-7 with 6 minutes left. You can feel the doors kind of shutting on the Falcons' opportunities. On second down with a 43-yard pass interference penalty on A.J. Terrell against Calvin Ridley, that put the Jags in Falcons territory. Then 3 plays later, Trevor Lawrence runs for a first down with 3:38 to go, which basically clinched it for Jacksonville because Arthur Smith at this point was out of timeouts. Brandon McManus of the Jags adds a field goal with 1:56 to go to make it 23-7. Next possession, the Falcons come out, down by 2 possessions with the slimmest of hopes, with no timeouts and under 2 minutes left. Desmond Ridder stripped by Josh Allen with 1:28 to go. Jags recover the ball. Game over. So the good things from this game, the defense held the rope for a majority of the game. They pressured and hit Trevor Lawrence a bunch of times, and they sacked him twice. Nate Landman and Richie Grant, they both played well today. So did David Onyemata. The defense held Jacksonville in the second half to just 6 points. The Jags were only 5 of 14 on 3rd down, and they missed on their only trip in the red zone. David Onyemata, again, a sack and a half today, had a nice game. Bijan Robinson, 14 carries, 105 yards. I mean, there's some good in this gut-punching loss as we laid out, but the bad really outweighs it. And the bad today, the offense couldn't get going for the second consecutive week in a row away from home. Tyler Algier wasn't effective for the second straight week. Desmond Ridder seemed indecisive after the ball was snapped a lot, and it cost the Falcons in a big way, especially in the first half. He just looked kind of lost, if you ask me. He looked like he was trying, like somebody who was trying too hard to not make a mistake. And in that, he took a sack on 3rd and 1 and threw 2 consecutive picks on 2 straight passes. Ridder did play better in the second half, but the 17-point hole he helped create, that was just too big to dig out of for the Falcons. The Falcons also lost a turnover battle 3-0. You can't do that if you want to win football games. Ridder's interceptions led to 10 Jacksonville points. He was sacked 4 times, and for the second week in a row, the Falcons' final possession ends with Ridder getting strip sacked to put a rotten cherry on top of a crap sandwich. All right, so we're going to call it good here, and thanks for checking out this recap of the Falcons' loss in Jacksonville. Next week, the Atlanta Falcons will come back home to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and they will take on the Houston Texans. And as this is being recorded, the Texans are playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they are up 10-0 at home in the first quarter on the Steelers. So keep an eye out for C.J. Stroud, Dameon Pierce, and the rest of the Houston Texans as they make their way to the A to take on Desmond Ridder, Grady Jarrett, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and your Atlanta Falcons. So thanks again for tuning in to this Atlanta Falcons audio experience. Want to invite you to follow me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, X, Snapchat, YouTube, and Threads at Craig G Sports. Please like, share, subscribe, and download this podcast with any Falcons fans you know. That would be fantastic. So again, we'll return after the Texans game sometime next Sunday or Monday. Hope the rest of you enjoy the remainder of your football Sunday as we are recording this just before 2 o'clock in the afternoon after the Falcons loss in London. So until the next Atlanta Falcons audio experience, right here in your ears, this is Craig Green saying sayonara and buenos noches.